Time planning and how to grow. This is probably one of the biggest questions that any beginner trader is asking himself, and I was asking this question quite a few times and in the very beginning of my own trading career, and I want to answer this question right now. Now, as I've said before, you must start as small as possible, and as I've described before, with every week into profit, you will be increasing the amount of traded contracts. But now this was, my explanations before were quite vague and just in general. Now I've put together just a brief, quick Word document showing exactly how it looks like on paper and in sort of perfect circumstances. So of course these numbers, they will differ person to person, and this is in a perfect scenario, but these are realistic numbers with real market and with my personal experience, and this is something that could happen to you and probably will if you do everything as I've taught you in this learning program and will teach you in this learning program. And as long as you follow all the rules and techniques and money management and psychological approaches, then you will be seeing these kinds of results very, very soon. All right, let's move to the screen, which is not the trading screen, but it's a Word document screen. And let me explain what I have here. So the market which I've chosen for this example is the DAX market, the one that I'm constantly showing to you in all the examples. Now the product for trading, I've written CFD. It will be in the beginning, and then later on we'll move to futures. The reason for the CFD in the very beginning is because you do not need very much money in your account to be able to trade CFDs. CFD is a abbreviation for contract for difference. And then you will move on to the futures, trading futures later on, but to trade futures you need a little bit more money in your account. Therefore, I do not recommend starting with futures. And of course, I'm talking about the futures of, for example, US market or the German market, where those futures are quite expensive. There are quite a few future contracts that you can trade in other markets that are actually quite cheap as well, and that we will discuss in another chapter. So here we have DAX, CFD, later futures, initial deposit $1,000. So this is something very, very realistic. Now risk per trade, I kept it at 1%, simple enough. Now the most important part is the average realistic profit per day, 30 points. Now this is quite subjective and it will be different day to day. Some day you will make 100 points, some day you will make minus 30 points. So you will have some minuses, some pluses, but in my personal opinion, the average realistic profit per day is around 30 points. Now, nowadays, the market moves so many points per day that actually expecting to make 30 points is not very much. You might think that 30 points per day is a lot, but in reality, it's not. Some traders make hundreds of points per day, which is quite crazy, and I am not one of those traders. I make maybe 50, 60, 70 points on average here and there, sometimes less, sometimes more. It's always different year to year. But 30 points is absolutely realistic for a beginner. And in my opinion, if you are doing everything as instructed in this learning program, you will have absolutely no trouble making 30 points on average per day. All right, so I had to warn you before we go through these numbers, is that when you start trading, the very beginning is always quite slow, just because of the mathematics themselves. And what I did here is I've made calculations per week. So when you started trading, the first week you're trading one CFD, which is $1 per point, and the potential profit per day on average, with 30 points average per day, you would make $150 per week. So $30 per day and $150 per week. And that would make it that by the end of the week number one, you will have $1,150 in your account, which is not really that very much. I know that making $150 per week, that's not very much. But again, we are looking at $1,000 initial deposit. Once you make it to 10,000, 20,000, those numbers will increase dramatically. The profit per day and per week and the speed at which you'll be increasing the amount of contracts will be increasing with the speed of light, pretty much. Because the trading curve of the income in the financial markets, when you're using correct money management and timely increase of the amount of traded contracts, then your trading profit curve will increase in the beginning slowly, and then it will take off into the ceiling. That's pretty much what happened to me and what happens to many other traders who know what they are doing, who have correct information, and who are following their own algorithm, statistics, and so on and blah, blah, blah. So, all right, let's begin. So week number 1, we make $150. Week number 2, we still make $150, because remember that our risk is kept to 1%, and if we wanted to trade 2 CFDs, we would need to have at least $2,000 in our account at an absolute minimum, and that's considering an average stop of around 10 points, so not even 20 points. The average stop here would be, in this calculation, around 10 points, just for the sake of this calculation. Now, week number 4, still $150 income, $1 per point, and the deposit is at around $1,600. Week 5, $150, still the same, $1,750. Week 6, all the same stuff, just $1,900. Week 7, $2,050. Now, finally, week 8, we move to 2 CFDs and we trade $2 per point, meaning that our risk stays the same, 1%, but we can finally, because we have $2,050 in our account, we can finally, in our risk management and money management, from the point of view of our money and risk management, we can allow ourselves to trade 2 CFDs. So finally, only in basically almost 2 months, we increase the amount to 2 CFDs, to 2 contracts. This is how this works, but I know that this looks quite slow, but wait, you will see how quickly it will be increasing. Now, so we finally moved in 8 weeks, we moved to 2 CFDs. Now week 9, so basically, yeah, and we are making now $300 per week and not $150 per week. So we are making the same amount of points, 30 points per day on average, but we are making twice as much money simply because we are trading 2 contracts and not 1 contract. So as you can see, week 9, week 10, we are making $300 per week on average, and that's on week 10 we have around $3,000 in our account. Then around week 11, we finally make the next bump. So we made the next bump to 3 contracts in just around 3 weeks instead of almost 2 months. So you can see already that the amount of time needed to increase to the next to increase the amount of contracts, the amount of time needed for that decreases substantially. So you can see that week 11 we are already trading 3 CFDs and making around $450 on average per week. And let's see what happens next. So week 14 we change to 4 CFDs since we have 4,400 in our account. And we can change to 4 CFDs and have $4 per point, meaning that on average we'll make around $600 per week. And then week 15, so look at that. It took us just 1 week of trading to get our $5,000 to be able to increase to 5 CFDs and have $5 per point and make $750 per week. Now, it takes us just 1 extra week to then on week 17 to switch to 6 CFDs and trade with $6 per point, meaning that we on average will be making around $900 per week. And around week 17 we will have $7,400 in our account. And remember, just 17 weeks ago we started with 1,000. And I know that this starts to look a little bit ridiculous, but this is what trading is all about. Now, furthermore, in just 1 week, again, we increased to 7 CFDs and $7 per point. Now, the next week, we increased to 8 CFDs. So every week now, we've started to increase the number of CFDs according to the mathematics, and that we can afford to increase the amount of traded CFDs. And now, week 21, we increased not by one CFD, but by actually by two CFDs, simply because we've jumped through the two price levels. And we have already at week 20, $11,000 in our account, meaning that we can trade easily 11 CFDs, meaning that we can make, on week 21, we can expect to make around $1,650 per week. Now that is becoming interesting, isn't it? In terms of making money. And look, it's just been a few months, right? It wasn't a few days, but it was been a few months, not 10 years. So now, of course, the next week 22, 12 CFDs, then week 23, 14 CFDs. So we jump by two CFDs again. Now the next week, we again jump by two CFDs, and we have 16 CFDs. Then week 25, we jump by two CFDs yet again. Then week 26, we jump by three CFDs already. So you can see how fast it's starting to accelerate. It's incredible. Now then again, week 27, we increase by three CFDs again, and we trade 24 CFDs, $24 per point. And week 28, we finally move to one full future, and we'll be trading $25 per point. Now, and this also means moving to another broker, because when you're starting to trade with the CFDs, you'll most likely be trading through some simple broker like IG Markets, and those brokers, we will talk about them, but those brokers might have quite a few nasty aspects to them and might have quite a few negative aspects, and I will recommend you a few good brokers that you should move to as soon as you can. But that you'll be able to do only if you can trade the full future and if you have this kind of money in your account. And well, there are a few exceptions, and we'll talk about all of that. But anyway, here we can see that week 28, we have one full future, and we can expect on week 28 to make around $3,700 per week. Now, if you calculate even this number per year, this is already more than a really nice attorney's yearly salary. So this is the power of trading at the financial markets. And the full future, one full future, will trade until $50,000 in our account. So for some time, I guess a few weeks, we'll have to spend a few months probably trading one full future, and then we'll move to two full futures, then to 3, to 5, to 10, and so on and so forth. And in this way, you can see that from $1,000 in a little bit more than half a year of active, correct, and stable trading, you will make a really substantial income. And this is the real math of financial markets. This is the way it works. This is how you should be increasing the amount of contracts systematically, only when you can afford to. And then this becomes the reality. And this is something you should be thriving for. And remember, 30 points per day, it's absolutely realistical. And I would not be surprised if you would start making even 50 points per day in the very beginning. It is possible, yet I always try to set my students' expectations straight so that you do not expect to. It's possible, but you should not expect it, and you should not wait for it, and you should not think that you deserve it or any of that. It should go with the flow, and you should be developing as it goes. Somebody develops faster, somebody a little bit slower, but if you follow all the correct rules and the recommendations from this learning program, it will happen sooner or later. Trust me on that. Now, and this is pretty much all I wanted to show you in this lesson, to show you how you can start even with $1,000 and just in less than a year make a substantial amount of money. And then in the next year, believe me, if you trade like this for a year and you start with $1,000, in just 1 or 2 years, you will have a lot of money in your account. I cannot say that you'll be a millionaire, or from trading, maybe you're a millionaire already, but want to trade just for fun or for sports activity or sports interest. By the end of the first year, you'll be very, very happy. And by the end of the next year of your successful trading and increasing the amount of traded contracts in this rational, logic, and realistical way, you will become one of the traders that is sitting in front of you right now, which is me. This is how I did it. This is how I made my millions that I've earned in the financial markets. And this is the path I went through. But I've started with a little bit more money than 1,000. So if you actually start with 10 or 15,000, then you will save yourself a lot of time. But once again, it's not necessary, and I recommend to actually start with the absolute minimum, which is around $1,000. So I hope that this clarifies quite a few questions. All right, don't forget about the test, and there is no homework, so enjoy some time off, and I'll see you in the next lesson, which is also the next chapter, in which I will start teaching you how to trade levels, the correct ways to actually enter into the trade of different structures of false break and true break and so on and so forth. So we'll start learning how to actually trade the key levels. All right, see you in the next chapter.